let's just get straight into it. Let's get into the meat and potatoes.
All right.
Introduce yourself. Tell the people what you do.
So I'm Matt Thayer. I'm from Southern Rhode Island, and I make a whole lot of everything regarding freshwater and saltwater fishing lures, whether it comes to wire baits, wood baits, top waters, swimming style baits, stuff like that. So um, I even dabble a bit with plastics. I don't sell a ton, mostly just for myself, but still I do even mess around with some plastics. I mostly focus on my wood baits, especially now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and like what's the name of the company and everything?
So I am Klondike Custom Creations. Uh, that's my name on Instagram, TikTok, and then I do have a Facebook page which is very small. It is both my Facebook page is both my woodworking and my fishing lure conjoined page, but there's only 100 people on there. So, but yeah, TikTok, Instagram is usually the best bet. Klondike Custom Creations.
Heck yeah, and I so kind of funny. So I was for the longest time I was out there searching around. I was like I need to find like a handmade spinner bait that I really like that like checks all the boxes for me. I had like all this like different criteria. I was kind of picky about it. And then I was watching Marlin Bates and your stuff popped up. He sent him some stuff to his PO box, and I was like, "That's it. It's what I've been looking for." And then I
Yep,
then I
yep.
had to go ahead and put in an order, and I got a couple of your spinner baits right in front of me that we can show off a little later.
Yeah, absolutely. So the spinner baits are what it was spinner baits and then bladed jigs, chatter baits. That really got me into the lure making stuff in general. Um, but yeah, so I actually probably shouldn't say it. I can be a naughty bait maker, but as Marling would say, as Nate would say, him and I are part of the secret society of Instagram bait makers. We do a trade. Uh, so we're like the Illuminati of bait makers. So um, and it's a pretty it's I can't say it's prestigious, but there is some big names in there. And I'm not one of them. But we're a whole bunch of us bait makers. We do a trade bi-monthly. Um, and I got Marling actually a couple of years ago, and I didn't get around to making him baits um, because my shop, a quarter of it, I lost it in a fire. My wood stove caught, and it was super super dry that like this like 2 weeks. And it lit up like a tinderbox. I went inside to have a meal. It was like 45 minutes, and I walked out, and it was like a quarter of my shop um, was actually up in flames. And I'm like, Nate, I'm sorry, I can't get these to you. And it was like I put it off and put it off, and sending baits to a guy like Nate is like, I want these to be so good um, that it's like he's impressed with it, and he's impressed with a lot of things, and he's one of those guys that's just like, um, he's excited when somebody just makes something, especially for him. Um, and I'm very similar in that regard, but it was like, okay, these have to be like super super top tier, like, and I put out some of my best work when I sent those to him. So, but yeah, that was pretty cool. Especially I've gotten shouted out on his channel a couple of times. Um, but yeah, that's cool. But to make a long story a little bit longer, um, the spinner baits and bladed jigs, and then a little bit of buzz baits, um, got me into bait making. Uh, my old tournament director, and the tournament that we fished overnight bass tournaments. So it was launch the boat at, blast off was 10 o'clock, and we fished till 6 in the morning. Um, so I wanted some big blade spinner baits, and you can't really buy those off the shelf. When I first started, it was Dick's Sporting Goods, and the once in a while trip to Bass Pro Shops, Tackle Warehouse, stuff like that. I couldn't buy like a 3/4 ounce spinnerbait with a number 8 Colorado on it. So he told me about this website called Lure Parts Online, which is quite a dangerous website if you haven't been on there. But you could get up to a few $100 quick on Lure Parts Online. Uh, and then I started making some. I started making those. I have a very extensive woodworking carpentry background, so it was quick to get into the wood baits. Started making some stuff for myself, and then I made a few baits for myself. I had a few buddies that were like, "Oh, you got to make this, that, and the other thing," and I'm like, "I'm not going to get into airbrushing. I'm not going to do this. I'm not going to do that." And then I had another guy. He offered me his airbrushing setup. He had a no name Amazon deal. But he's like he pours soft plastics. He's like, I messed around with the crankbaits for a little bit. It was cute, but it's not my game. You want my airbrush and stuff, you can have it. So I got a bunch of paints and airbrush and stuff like that and a compressor. Started airbrushing, and it was like, okay, this isn't incredibly hard. To get a halfway decent paint job. So I started doing that, and it snowballed ever since. And then it really hit to be a business during COVID. So I started about late 2018 to 2019. I started making baits. So, the actual business and selling stuff aspect came around in that time, right before COVID and all the shutdowns. Shutdowns made it possible that I had some time to work on different stuff, build up stock, start marketing and selling stuff. So,
And with the baits that you make, how do you like to sell them? Like you say, you build up an inventory. Do you like to do like custom orders? Because we kind of did I just messaged you and said, hey, I wanted some stuff. Is that normally how you do it?
that's normally how I like to do it. I don't have an actual website. I'm not the biggest I like to be working with my hands. I don't want to be messing around on the computer. I'm actually a carpentry teacher at a local high school here, and I have a crazy amount of computer work that I do now. So it's like, I want to be in the shop making stuff, and if I can message somebody back and forth a few times on social media, that's kind of the goal. I do want to work towards a website, just basically an overview on me, and I can put some baits on there, just to sell. Okay, I got X amount of these, and I got 10 white spinner baits, and I got, whatever. But a lot of it is I like to do my custom stuff. You wanted, if you wanted, I want 3 black buzz baits, 2 green pumpkin, and green pumpkin red bladed jigs, and then I need your help on a spinnerbait for condition X, Y, and Z, then I can help you out with that. That's one of my favorite things is like, I want to get into, somebody will ask me like, I want to get into spinnerbaits. When should I start throwing them? What should I throw? What should I throw and when? Stuff like that, giving people a little bit of a overview on how to actually, go about using those things. And I don't claim to be a professional by any means, but I can get bit on a spinnerbait. So,
Mm-hmm.
um, but yeah, so that's a lot of the stuff that I like to do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, one of the times that I like to throw spinner baits is kind of spring, early summer, and also I'll throw a spinner bait as kind of all right, let me gauge out how these fish are gonna react to a moving bait, and then I'll go from there. If I see fish following but not committing, it's okay, maybe let's try something a little slower, throw a jig or a Texas rig, drag a worm, do something else. Um, but here's one of the spinner baits that you did. I was pretty stoked about it because you did a similar one for Nate, and I was like, that's what I need because in this area that we're in, we have a lot of trout, rainbow trout or whatever, and I threw this around a good bit at a lake that's not very good for bass fishing, but it's better for trout fishing, and I've hooked into trout before on spinnerbaits and just had tons of trout following this and swiping at it. And then I got one of those Crush City, Rapala Crush City. I don't
Yeah,
remember
yeah,
the little trailer.
yeah. The pintail are they pintail minnows? I don't know the name of them actually, but yeah.
I don't even know. It just seemed like a good pair up. Um, Something like not super, it's a little more subtle, not as much action, just kind of gives it a little bulkier of a profile and has a little bit of action on the back, but it's not like as much as like a paddle tail or something like that.
No, that's that's perfect. I throw I don't know, 90% of the time, maybe a little bit less. I actually like a single tail grub, as old school as I am. Um, I got a friend that makes. I have a soft plastic grub mold, but I get some grubs from a buddy of mine, Cody's Custom Baits. He's also in Rhode Island. Chris, his son is Cody. Him and his son pour baits, but he's like his grubs are great. I bought hundreds of these things from him, and I've sent a lot of my customers towards him. Like, all right, trailers for these, go to Chris. He'll hook you up. But yeah, the I'm a big fan of the single tail grub on a spinnerbait, and then even on a chatterbait sometimes. But I do like I like the pintails on a chatterbait bladed jig.
Hmm. Uh, a couple of things that I liked about your spinnerbaits, because so we did this one because this was like a custom one that you had to like paint and bust out the airbrush, um, and then we did like a little bluegill one as well. And I like this one a lot. A couple things I really like about the baits. Just kind of go over that a little bit. Great hook on them. I like when my spinner baits, like then the wire has like it's not super stiff. It has more bend to it. And then you also got a really secure skirt on there. Just like I don't know what kind of rubber collar that you're using for these, because I was like maybe I want these like tied, but I don't know what kind of rubber collar you're using. But that skirt's like hasn't moved.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, no, that's with the spinner baits, I've made hundreds and hundreds of them. And I'm probably into the thousands by now. Um, but yeah, I've made a lot of them. I've thrown a lot of them. If you looked at my boat, you'd be like, what are you doing, dude? Why do you have so many of these things in your boat? Um, and I tell everybody like, yep, I can sell Bass Pro spinner baits. Like, just yeah, no, that's one of my deals, that's for sure. And one of my one of if not my favorite bait to make and experiment with, to make as well as fish.
Mm-hmm.
The those bait fish type um those bait fish type spinner baits I actually started making. I actually won a lure making competition for Lure Parts Online used to put on. I don't know if they do it anymore. Um but it was in partnership with Tackle Underground, their forum. Um and they had like a wood bait and a wire bait, stuff like that. I came in, I won with my first trout. I still have it over here on my bench, um, which I can actually grab. I didn't even think of grabbing that one. Um, and then uh, and then I got second place on one of my wood baits, which was in a prior year, which was pretty cool. But yeah, that's what kind of started me down the road of those bait fish esque um, ones, and those are ones I can nerd out on, and like you said, break out the airbrush and the paint pens and stuff like that, mess around with the painting the blades and the heads and stuff like that, and doing some different stuff with the skirts.
Mm-hmm. No, these are great. I love these. Like I said, I put in like a fairly big order because I got the rainbow trout one, and then I got a couple bluegill, then I got a couple just like kind of like pre-made like heads that you had of like a shad pattern.
Yep.
So I'm kind of set here for a bit on spinner baits. I'm pretty excited about it. Um, let's go into your wood lures because if you look on like your Instagram, you have like some cool stuff that you've been doing.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, like I said, so I mostly turn on the lathe, so um, spindle turning between centers. So you're making that plug style, that old school round lure, mostly on the lathe. I do some uh, that are like flat side that you run over a router. Some like wake bait stuff. I do make some that I carve. Like I make one of these. I've had this guy for a while, but that's a big old monster rat,
Mm-hmm.
and that's Alaskan yellow cedar. So that's carved out of wood. If you can see it, but yeah,
Mm-hmm.
so that's all carved out of wood. Um, and I've done so that's like a carved bait. Then I do like my saltwater plugs. That's a turn metal lip. So stripers, bluefish, stuff like that. Um, that lip, that old school plug lip. And my light's kind of sucky, but that old school pre-bent plug lip that dives basically just like a crankbait. This one's sanded on the top. There's like a flat on there. Actually, let me try. Maybe not, but that's a metal lip. This one is a similar style bait, but that's my chevron.
Mm-hmm.
So that's my um so that's this is Alaskan yellow cedar and red cedar. Um this is glued up and then cut like three different times and then turned. So they're actually individual pieces of wood in here essentially after they're all glued up. That's the woodworker in me, the nerd in me. My original bait though is the jitterbug style bait that I started to make. So going back to those, um, to the overnight fishing tournaments that I did, one of the big all time best bass lures at night is jitterbug, and one of those that's discontinued is the Arbogast jitter stick. So it's similar to this. This guy's a little bit bigger than an original jitter stick. They had a prop on the rear, a pointed prop, um, and I started making these on the lathe after I found out that I could buy the actual jitterbug bibs on Lure Parts Online and Barlow's. Um, and I was like, oh man, I got to make those out of wood. They used to make them out of wood, so why can't I do it now? Um, but that was like my first really successful bait, fish catching wise and selling wise. And the yeah, the jitterbug is actually gaining a little bit more popularity in the swim bait kind of community. Um, I went on a pretty big flurry this winter, and I made a whole bunch for a lot of guys. A couple of guys caught wind that I was making them out of wood, and um, they were actually buying the original wood musky bugs off eBay, paying like $80 a piece for the original ones, um, and then sending them out and having the old hardware taken off and putting on and modified and everything like that. And then they caught wind that I was making them new for cheaper than $80 a piece, and then paying an actual modification fee on top of that. So I went on a decent flurry this winter making the jitterbug style baits, which was cool. I wish I had a crawler to show you, but I actually don't. I have a couple behind me that are just basically turned. I don't have wings on them yet, but I do make crawlers as well. Um, and I actually right now I every time I've made one, I've sold it almost instantly. I'll put it on my Facebook and I'll sell it, or I'll get an order and I'll get like I'll put a picture on like, yep, this one's out the door today, and I'll get an order for 2 more. So I don't actually have any done at the moment. Um, but yeah, the wood baits, they're very it's combining a passion, both two passions between fishing and the woodworking end of things. Um, and then like I do saltwater plugs. That's like a big walking bait. So that's a big old spook with a rattle. Um, and that's for big stripers. uh, Being on the south coast of Rhode Island, I deal a lot with that. Um, a lot with the wind coming off of the ocean, so coming out of the south blowing north, and I get the surf casting guys that want stuff tail weighted, 3 ounces and over, stuff that they're slinging on on 10 foot, 11 foot surf rods, and they're trying to go. They're trying to chuck them like those the reels that you'll see of the guys. They'll chuck the thing and then they'll put the reel up to the camera and it'll go ping. Those those that's what those guys are. They're really trying to cut through that wind and everything like that. So a lot of technique specific stuff. Poppers like this is a carved popper that I did. That one's not turned on the lathe, but that one's then the mouth is all carved out. But that's a striper plug. This isn't like an old school atom popper, same color scheme. So blue head with the sparkles, all kinds of different stuff. This was actually the baby brother to this guy. So this guy, and then this guy. So this is a recreation of a Gibbs jointed GTS, and this was a super popular surf plug on the West Coast. A few of them made them over here. Some of the old school guys throw the original ones, and there was actually an article done, and a gentleman that one of the shows that I do, he actually asked me to make him a half a dozen of these. So I made them, and he was ecstatic. He's got two 27 pound stripers, and then one over 30 on these, which are really cool. And that's pounds, not inches. So,
Mm-hmm.
but yeah, this is the scaled down version of the jointed GTS. Yeah, and then there's a whole bunch of different stuff that I make. There's a whole bunch of um, things that I like to do. Hence the name custom. I enjoy making everything.
Mm-hmm.
It's,
Oh, one of the lures like on your Instagram page that's like really eye catching is the well, it's like a prop bait, and it has like, so it's wood. It looks like you turned it on a lathe, but it has the darker and lighter contrasting, and it swirls like a candy cane.
oh yeah, 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 yep.
That thing is sick.
Thank you very much. Yeah, those are like I said, it's the woodworker in me, and I love that. I love that kind of stuff.
Sorry, no, freaking amazing stuff, dude. And
Thank you.
I like the old school kind of style to stuff, especially
That
with like those carved baits.
Oh, thank you. And that's just how I am. And it was like growing up, I tried to not enforce the whole old school aspect. It's like I've always been into classic rock, and um, I've always been into stuff like that. I've always been an old soul. My grandmother always said that about me, even when I was little, and it still comes out in me with my lure making and stuff. Like even Nate in the video was like, "Oh yeah, look at this! Those old guys that we saw on the river, they were probably throwing something like this." So it was and he's like, "Oh yeah, the old school cup washers and this and that." And I'm like, "I guess I really am just old school." And I guess it comes out in the way that I fish too. Really.
Yeah, I mean, because you could argue like throwing a spinner bait is kind of old school, just because a lot of people like like chatterbaits or the all the different bladed jigs out there. And I've really gotten into like throwing a spinnerbait lately, just because I feel like it complements my style because I like to I like just to fish fast and just keep going. Um, just doesn't always work out for me.
Yep.
But yeah, and it has kind of taught me to slow down a little bit too, because I also will just like slow crank that spinnerbait and just drag it.
Oh man, the spinnerbait is that's a bait to me. Like you said, not a lot of guys throw it. They're highly customizable. Not everybody's throwing what I'm throwing, different wire sizes, different blades, so on and so forth. Anybody can downsize their tail blade. Um, they can add a different trailer. They can fish it a different way. There's a million and one ways to fish a spinnerbait. Um, and the bladed jigs are actually getting to that point where there's a lot of different styles. Like they have the big blades and the stealth blades, and then you have guys like me that make them with a split ring. Z-Man, they don't make them with they're right on the hook. Um, Omega Custom Tackle, they use a swivel. They use a ball bearing swivel. Um, or no, yeah, Omega. Um, there's a whole bunch of different ways with those bladed jig style baits. But those spinner baits, they're just so customizable. I've caught fish in tournaments behind guys on my spinner baits, and guys are like, you caught them on blades, and I couldn't catch them on blades, and I was like, I'm throwing something totally different than what you are. And it's like that that Strike King white double willow. The fish have seen that. It's a similar vibration. It's a similar look. Um, and then you're throwing the same Kitech soft plastic trailer on the back or nothing with a trailer hook, um, stuff like that. But I tell everybody, especially when I take out new people to fish or customers of mine, they'll ask me to take them out, give them a spinnerbait lesson or different lessons on my baits. Like I've saved my ass in tournaments just going down a windy bank with a spinnerbait and just chucking and winding, covering water. And it's just one of those. It's a confidence thing, and it's a producing lure in the right conditions.
Hmm. Yeah, I do like this Airbnb experience where I take people fishing. A lot of like there's trout fishing out here. That's what a lot of people want to do. But I had this dude that wanted from Wisconsin, and he's like, "Well, I want to go bass fishing and maybe catch some pike or whatever." And I was like, "All right." So I have a big tandem kayak. Thing it's huge. It's heavy. It's like kind of neat. Tracks really good in the water.
Hmm.
And so I was um, just paddling him around, and we were going down the banks. And I was like, "All right, we're gonna start out. We're gonna throw a spinnerbait. We'll kind of see what they're doing and go from there. If we need to slow it down, or if we can just kind of drift down these banks and catch fish on a spinnerbait, that's what we'll do." It's before I had your spinnerbaits, because I was throwing like a what did I have the guy throw? Kites. It was a Kitech or like a Strike King like paddle tail as a trailer, and then maybe like a Booyah spinnerbait
I
or
was gonna
something
say
like
it's
that.
either a Strike King, a Booyah, or a War Eagle.
Yeah, yeah. And dude, we were going down the bank, and we started getting bites, and he caught a couple like not huge pike. They're maybe in that 15 to 20 inch range, nothing like crazy big. And he caught I don't know 6 or 7 bass, and then like two good sized rock bass on
Oh
those
yeah.
spinner baits. And because about halfway through we were doing pretty decent. I was like, "Do you want to switch it up, or you just want to keep throwing that spinner bait?" He's like, "We're just gonna keep chucking this." He's like, "It's working. Let's not change it up."
No, man, that's it. If it's working, that's for sure.
Yeah.
No, I bet you that guy's hooked on spinner baits now. You know.
Well, it was really funny too, because I told him after. This was like before I like really started getting into spinner baits, and I told him I was like, you know, I know a spinnerbait's a good bait. It's just not something I throw a lot. So this kind of like helped my confidence too. Um, and then I was following up behind him when I could with Tiny Clash,
Yeah.
DRT Tiny Clash, and few follows, few strikes. Not couldn't get anything to commit. But I feel like if I would have kept throwing that TK like consistently behind where he was, um, I think we would have smoked him. Would have put a bag together for a
Yep.
tournament.
Yep. Yeah, there you go. Yeah, no, man, that spinner bait, it's like, and then I'll get going on, running down a bank or grass line or something like that, and I'll have guys in the back like, dude, you gotta slow down. You gotta slow down. I'm like, nah, man, cover in water, flipping, chucking, winding. Like you gotta keep up, figure it out. Just I have one buddy that's he's a big swim bait guy and he spends a lot of his time on the bank and he's like dude, you fish way too fast. I'm like, I'm sorry, it takes you 10 minutes to roll in that, you know, roll in that 3-piece wake bait or, troll pit crawler or whatever. And it's like, I don't care. I made like 7 casts, you're one, you know? Um, but yeah, that. And then the big baits are situational for me. I usually will start out with them in the morning. Unless it's spinner bait or buzz bait conditions. I do love a buzz bait too. Um, but the you know, with the big baits, it's a lot of situational type stuff. Weather has to be pretty good. They'll have to eat it pretty quick for me to have to eat one of them pretty quick for me to continue to throw it. I have a lot of the mindset of like, okay, they don't want to play with this. I'm not getting any follows. I'm not getting any interest in this thing. It's not working. Or I'm with somebody that's chucking something like that. And I'm like, like I had a buddy. I was talking about glide baits. I have a couple of sweet glide baits from a couple of smaller makers, and I'm like, yeah, man, I want to get into the glide baits. A lot of guys are putting together monster bags of glides, especially in spring. Um, but and he chucked a glide bait behind me for like 2 hours. Same bait, chucking and winding, and I had a 5-fish bag going, just fun fishing, uh, between a spinner bait and something else. I can't remember. Probably mostly just a spinner bait. No, and a swim jig as well. Uh, but he's like, yeah, man, to learn how to throw a glide bait, you got to throw it. I'm like, I threw it. But I didn't get bit on it, and you behind me haven't caught anything on a glide bait. So that tells me that they're really not eating it. Just, and I know that's how you learn how to throw things, but there kind of comes a time like, all right, I'm kind of wasting my time here grinding this big bait. I need to downsize. I need to change it up. I need to do something else. And that, with all the baits that I make, it comes to show that I do have a short attention span to certain things. So I'll end up throwing a whole lot of stuff. And I say I do my best work when I have 15 rods on the deck of my boat and I'm just going switching back and forth trying to find something that works.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, some of the best like glide bait bites have been when I've been deliberately just fishing them slow, and it's like you said, you just gotta throw it to be able to like figure it out because you can do some cool things with a glide bait. Like if you're pitching around like a dock and say you don't get it quite as close as you want, you can glide that thing and get it closer to the dock.
Right, exactly.
You just have to like figure out how to do it. Like,
And that's where that's what it comes in situationally with me. Throwing up close against structure, not making those blind casts essentially. Um, just out in the middle of nowhere, hoping that you run it over a few rocks or something like that. And that's become that's become a confidence thing in me, is throwing the glide bait, throwing a wake bait, and throwing that in place of a spinner bait or a buzz bait. I kind of think of it essentially as upsizing, um, in a different bite window. Has to be the right conditions for my confidence level. Lower light, or lower pressure conditions, stuff like that, or totally off the wall, um, totally off the wall conditions. I'll pick one up. So like bright sunny days, high pressure system, lack of wind, I'll pick up a glide bait and grind it around for a good half hour to see if I can uh, pick up something, especially if nothing else is going on. I'll always say, well, I might as well just catch nothing on a glide bait instead of a drop shot. It's a lot cooler to not catch anything on a glide bait than a drop shot.
I just absolutely refuse to like fish like a drop shot or like a Ned rig. I'm just too damn stubborn. I'm like, I'll grind it out with everything else before I have to go like super finesse like that. It's like I'll drag a Nico rig
Yep.
or something like that before I will tie up a drop shot or a Ned rig.
Yep. Oh yeah, dude. And that's been like the finesse jig. Past couple of years, I have my bass fishing mentor. He's always like, Maddie, throw a jig. You gotta throw a jig. Put the spinner bait down. Throw a jig. You gotta throw a jig. And like the best jig that you're throwing is the one that you have in your hands that's in the water. Um, and it's like the finesse jig has been a confidence bait where I pick up that instead of like a Ned rig. So it's like, okay, I'm still dragging around a jig. It's got a craw trailer, it's got a skirt, it's got a brush guard. It's not a Ned rig. But and just like you said, I'll flip that thing, let it hit the bottom, pop, reel it in, flip it, go, and then just and grind it. Um, Let it hit that fall, cover some water. Um, that's just how it's been for the past couple of years. Also, another bait that I don't make, that goes kind of along with that similar bite, is an actual tube jig. Um, I've been snapping a tube a good amount, especially this year, and doing pretty well on it. So, just and then another old school thing that I do.
Hmm.
You know,
We have a couple reservoirs around this area that have lake trout, and that's one of my goals. Like I got some tubes, and it's like these are tubes that I'm gonna, they're just bass tubes or whatever. They're not like anything huge because you get big like lake trout tubes. There's like normal size like bass tube, and it's like I'm going to catch a lake trout. Be really cool if I did it on like a swim bait or a spinner bait or something like that. But it's like if I have to just drag a tube around, I will do that so I can add that to my species list. It's like caught a lake trout.
that's cool. And it's like I don't have Lakers around here. There is like a couple of places in Connecticut, Western Connecticut, that's a couple hours away from me, that do have Lakers in them. Uh, but it's like nothing I've ever targeted or I've never even seen in person. So it's like, talking about a tube for a trout is pretty cool. The only my extensive trout is like, black hair jig, black rooster tail, power bait, stuff like that. So, it's a lot of stockies, and then, fly fishing and everything that the guys do around here. There is some natives, but not a ton. Mostly all stock type stuff around in southern New England. So that's cool. I didn't know that. You told me something.
Hmm.
Didn't even know you could target Lakers with a tube. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, there's like our local tackle shop. They're for lake trout or big pike, and just dropping it over the side of the boat. Like it's kind of, it seems like more of a summertime technique, but just like dropping it down and looking at your graph and just jigging that thing.
Yep.
So that's not my style, but I'll like drag one around like on my kayak,
Yep.
like in the fall or something. But my like trout fishing style, is, well, I do like BFS, you know?
Yeah.
So my trout fishing style is like very similar to how I bass fish. So I have like some little tiny glide baits and little paddle tails, little chatterbaits, um, like a little like a the little Z-Man flashback mini chatterbaits. Those have
Yeah.
like kind of replaced inline spinners for me for trout.
Oh, no kidding. That's cool. That's a cool thing. I'll have to try that myself. Actually, that's pretty cool. And it's funny now that I predominantly bass fish. I grew up trout fishing, uh, but it's like I've caught so many big trout stockies around here. I've caught them on a jerk bait. Essentially, I've caught so
Mm-hmm.
many big trout on a jerk bait. I've had them chase spinner baits. I've caught a couple on spinner baits, um, but like I've caught some really good trout on suspending jerk baits. It's pretty cool. That's for sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like like kind of like 110
Mm.
size jerk baits. Those will work pretty good. And then I've caught a couple trout on. Are you familiar with like a Depths 250?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Okay, not the 250, the 115.
Okay.
I've caught trout on that, the 115 size, and that's a you'll get more follows and swipes than you'll actually hook up with fish. But it's so cool. It's like the coolest thing ever, and people just give you the weirdest damn looks when you're out there. You're chucking like a bigger glide bait out at your trout areas.
Oh yeah. I mean, like, no, I'm going for a different fish than you are, dude. Like, sorry, you're fly fishing. I'm not.
And
you know.
it's like, yeah, it's like you're soaking your powder bait down there. I'm kind of trying to do something different.
Yup. That's exactly it. Oh yeah, I'll get that all the time. Or like I'll go to trout lakes. I used to fish off the bank before I got my boat, a lot more than I do now. But it was like I'd be chucking around like in the summer. I'd throw a 10-inch ribbon tail off the bank, and guys are like, "What are you doing?" Like, what do you mean? What am I doing? I'm fishing. Like, for what? Sharks? And I'm like, I don't know. This is too small for a shark, dude. Like, uh, but yeah, dragging 10-inch ribbon tails for bass and stuff like that in trout lakes. I used to do that a lot. It's pretty funny that you say that because it's like I feel like a lot of every I feel like a lot of people that have bass fished and everything, they've had that similar interaction with the trout heads, like chucking panther martins or fly fishing or soaking power bait or something like that, and then somebody breaks out a senko. And they're like, "What is that thing?" You know?
Dude, okay. Oh, so fucking like where I was that lake that I was throwing your spinnerbait at and was getting a lot of follows. I started throwing a senko because I had my
Yep.
bass stuff, and I had a trout, like a stalker, 15, 16-inch trout, like eat my 5-inch senko. Like didn't get the hook, but I just saw it and it's pretty clear. Just saw it grab my senko and was giving it a little bit, and then I reeled into it a little bit and just didn't have any hooks, but I just watched it swim away with that Gary Yamamoto Senko in its mouth.
Yeah. Dude, a buddy of mine, we fished a big open a few years back, and it was tough that day, super super tough, um and he's dragging around a power worm, 7.5-inch power worm, and he gets bit on it, and he's like, "Yup, fish net." And the thing comes to surface, and it's like, bah, 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 splashing around. I'm like, dude, what the hell is that? And then I see at the side of it silver, and I'm like, dude, it's a fucking trout. He's like, oh my god, I'm throwing a power worm, dude. I'm like, what are you doing? Like catching a trout on a power worm. I've caught him on a drop shot before. I caught at a non it's a reservoir. It's a non trout stocked reservoir, pond, whatever you want to call it. But there's a couple of rivers that'll come into it when the water gets high, and every once in a while he'll hear guys talk about seeing trout or catching one. I got one flipping a Texas rig beaver in a tournament. I stuck this fish um outside of there was some coontail grass in front of a dock. I flipped it and I see that line go straight. And I set the hook and same thing comes right up and I see a big pink line on the side. I'm like, damn rainbow trout. What the hell? And it was a black and blue sweet beaver. I was flipping with a 3/8 ounce on a Texas rig. It was just crazy.
Yeah, like kind of luckily around me. So like we have like pike and we have pretty big pike around my area.
Mm-hmm.
So anytime I have like a big like 9-inch glide bait, 8-inch glide bait tied on, people just kind of assume it's like, oh, he's just out here to catch a pike, which it's like, yeah, and then maybe not even a big one. Like I could catch a 12-inch pike on this 9-inch bait.
Yep. No, and we have some pike. We don't have a lot that you can really go out and target. They're very random. Essentially, you can target them when it gets cold and then through the ice too. When we actually get ice, but like it's not like a big thing around where I am, just because the freshwater scene is so much smaller than the saltwater scene. It's like I live 5 miles away from the ocean, so the saltwater guys they're totally different. They're different breed than us bass guys, but yeah, the like you said, guys would be like, oh yeah, they must be going for a pike at whatever lake that we're going to. It's like not necessarily, no. Like I caught my first and my biggest pike. I caught it out of a river that's essentially pretty private. It's public, but there isn't any like real boat launches off of it. You can launch, car toppers, kayaks, canoes, whatever, pretty much anywhere on this river, but boats you can't. My old club, we were able to launch from a lady's yard, and I was fishing that river, and I was throwing an Arbogast mini buzz plug on a spinning rod, and I see this swipe, and it took me 50 feet to the right and then into the channel, and I'm like, I don't know what's going on, and I got that fish in, but it was a pike, and I'm like, oh my god, this is insane, because we have pickerel. So you probably don't have pickerel, right?
No, but I'm familiar.
Yeah. So we have a ton of those things. That's one of our only native freshwater species. So our southern New England pickerel, a lot of few of the sunfish, bluegill species, and then the trout that are ocean run, actually. So brookies, stuff like that. Browns, they were actually, those being ocean run, they were in ponds. And people don't seem to believe me when I'm like, no, you can look it up. They're an ocean run fish. But and then they end up reproducing in the bodies of water that are connected. But yeah, the pickerel they get larger quick. They eat baits sooner, like out of that juvenile stage, and they reproduce like crazy. So they are definitely one of the fish that are very annoying in a tournament aspect. The whole lot of different names for the old lake snake and snot rocket and all kinds of different stuff like that. The old pickerel. But yeah, so there's not too many guys that go out and target those things. But when they get big, they're pretty fun, especially on light tackle. But not in a tournament. When you think you got lunker on, and then it shoots off 40 feet to the right, you're like, yep, that's got teeth.
Mhm. Yeah, I've been so before before I knew anything about anything. Uh, I was throwing like my biggest pike came on me throwing a buzz bait. This is quite the combo because it was probably like 12-pound mono, throwing a buzz bait on a spinning rod, and I caught like I didn't get a size on it, but it was fat. And when I landed this pike, it was, I'm gonna conservatively say it was 30 inches, but just had a huge belly on it, and you could see like bumps sticking out of its belly where it's just been gorging on different fish, and they were just a fat pike. I wish I had better pictures of it, but it was pretty cool. But yeah, before I knew anything about anything, just buzz bait on a spinning rod caught a pike.
Dude, it's the same thing as it was a buzz plug, 6'6", Abu Garcia, Walmart, something or other. I know it was an Abu, but it same thing, 12-pound mono on this spinning rod, and it had what I have to guess was a turtle in its belly, and it was like a full turtle, and it was just that oval shape, and I'm like, what is, I was like, what the hell did this thing eat? A rock? And then I'm like, oh, it's got to be a turtle. It's like, you know, it's just kind of, it was just kind of funny the story. Just like, and that pike was right around that 30-inch mark, so that's pretty cool.
Mm-hmm. I think you're in a cool area because you do have the opportunity to, you know, drive 5 miles and like get into some striper fishing on top water. That'd be sick.
Yeah, oh yeah, the um the saltwater aspect of things is super cool. Um, and I don't get out as much as some guys say I should, or as much as I would really like to. I go hit a tide a few times during the spring and the fall run, um, and but I mean it's in the summertime off the shore it can be a little bit tough. You have to really grind them at night because it's a big night scene to get those real big fish. Hit them at a hit them on a full moon swing if there's bait around, if there's not, because like if there isn't peanut bunker, if there isn't any bait around, it's like it's kind of pointless to be fishing, essentially. Out in the ocean, so in some of the salt ponds, not necessarily, but because they do, you can kind of target them like a big large, they just treat them at like a big largemouth, um, on different points, in areas where bait fish will hang out, and live, stuff like that. But yeah, the surf game is totally, uh, it's a totally different aspect. You end up swimming to different spots. You drive to this spot, walk 2 miles down to the beach to a jetty, walk out on the rocks, and then like we have breachways, and it's basically the connection between a salt pond to the actual ocean. And there's normally two rock jetties that stick out. Basically looks kind of like a canal. Um, and you have to do a thing called rotate at the end of the rocks, so everybody can get a decent cast without tangling up lines at the end of the rocks. Make a cast, you move to the right, so on and so forth. You have to rotate. Then guys make up their own rules of rotating, and then guys don't understand how to rotate, so it gets to be a big mess pretty quick. um, so they you know, end up wading out into the water. Everything like that. Swim into spots, like I said. There's a couple of spots um, down the road from me and where I work where there's actual eye bolts drilled into the rocks, and guys take out harnesses and clip themselves to the eye bolts and everything. So when a big wave comes in, they don't get swept in on the undertow. They'll take the wave, and then they'll have minimal gear with them because they swam out to these rocks or whatever. and they'll take the wave and then they'll go back to fishing because they're on a harness. It's pretty insane. That's for sure.
That's
Um,
some
yeah.
hardcore stuff.
Oh yeah, dude. That the surf cast is insane. Guys walking out um with the not cleats, but like the strap on like metal spikes um on the boots to walk on the rocks, with the different waders and everything like that. Um there's a couple of pretty large stores here in Rhode Island that are surfcaster centric. So it's like surf plugs and surf casting gear. So plug bags, um, surf rods. There's like no boat, like anything. It's all dedicated to surf casting off the shore. And then you get some of the tackle shops where it's both. But there's a couple of like pretty big shops that have all that kind of stuff just for the actual surf casting game. Like I do. One of the shows that I do, it's put on by the club Narragansett Surfcasters, um, and they do they'll do monthly tournaments within the club, and they do this show every winter, but it's mostly surf casting, guys. It's very minimal boat type stuff, and then it's striper and bluefish centric. And then the false albacore, so the albies, um, so the mini tunas, basically. You get those in the fall. Got a lot of guys will target those. Those will be up shallow in the fall chasing bait before they move on. I have yet to catch one of those, and I would really love to. Those things are super cool. You go out, you're fishing for those things with basically bass tackle, essentially, maybe a little bit heavier spinning gear, essentially, like a 5,000 size reel, 7 foot, 7 foot medium rods, stuff like that, with 15 to maybe 20 pound fluorocarbon. But you're targeting those things with half-ounce jig heads with a 3-inch paddle tail, and they're mini tunas, but they are absolute rocket ships. I'd love to catch one. That's just one thing that I haven't put the time and the dedication into actually patterning those things, finding where they are, finding what size bait they're on, stuff like that. It's a science within it, within, as you know, targeting fish. Um, it's a science, that's for sure. But yeah,
Hmm.
like Mike Aganelli, he did he vacationed up here once, and it was funny because I knew the spot that he was at. He caught a striper, and then he walked like across the street, and then caught a largemouth out of this pond that's like right by the ocean. It's super cool. So, and then off the south coast of Rhode Island is Block Island. So there's Block Island, and then there's uh Fish's Island, Long Island, in New York. It's right over, it's right over, basically south of Connecticut. But there's a few different islands out there, and Block Island is only 7 miles long from, at the longest points. But there's a couple of ponds out there, and I've really wanted to bass fish in those ponds. Uh, just to say that I did. It's like Block Island's one of the surf casting and then big striper locations um, on the East Coast, and it's like I want to go and try to catch a 5 pound largemouth flipping a jig, you know, on an island out in the not in the middle of the ocean, but out in the ocean, and then but yeah, and then it's like yeah, and then try to go catch a 40 pound striper off the ledge. Um, out on a boat, which is cool in itself. But um, us in Rhode Island, when you see like somebody with a big striper, and it's like on a boat, it's like yeah, they got put on that fish, and they they went off Block Island off the ledge and dropped an eel on its head, because that's what they do, and they just sit in this big swath of a ledge and these rock piles and stuff, and out super deep, but they drop these eels on their heads and they consistently catch 40-45 pound stripers, um, which is astronomical. I've lived here my whole life and I've never caught a saltwater fish off of a boat. Um, it's all been shore based. So
Mm. No, it's on the bucket list for me as well to like go. I got a buddy that lives in Rhode Island, and so he's like, dude, we can go catch, like, go to some ponds and lakes, go catch some largemouth out on the kayaks, or we could try to catch. He's not a big striper guy. I think he's gonna try to get into it more, but
yep,
it'd be pretty sweet to catch a big striper on a, you know, big walking bait or a poppa.
yep, yep. Big Papa, that's for sure. Yep. The Yeah. Does he fish? Does he fish in the kayak, in the bass fish, in the tournament league, kayak league, or no?
No, I don't know if that's really his vibe. He's on YouTube. You can find him. Spice Can't Fish. He does like a lot of conventional and then does like a lot of swim bait stuff. He's a pretty
Oh yeah.
solid dude.
I've never. Yeah, I haven't. I don't know. I might. I know a ton of. I know a ton of people around here. Then I know most of the Rhode Island kayak bassing. So I didn't know you. You know, you and I might add a mutual friend. That was pretty cool.
Oh, he just moved there, so
Oh, okay.
pretty new to the area.
What was his YouTube?
Spice Can't Fish.
I'll have to. I'm gonna write that down, and I will definitely look him up. But yeah, it's very much of a it's a very much it, there's a wide range of things that we can do over here. I've talked with a decent amount of guys online, and they're like, "Oh, you live in New England, you must have good smallies," and um, Rhode Island must have small. And I'm like, and there's a few lakes that have smallmouth, and I call them lakes. They're glorified ponds, um, but they're not something you're gonna go out and really target, really try to target. The population size isn't that big, or they're just stunted, 12-inch, 13-inch fish, even less than that. And I've just seen the populations go down and down. I have one lake that I used to consistently at least catch one every trip, and then I caught one last year, and I haven't, and that was actually the first one I had caught in that body of water in a couple of years. Um, but that was one of the premier lakes around here back in the old days, when everybody said, it used to be so much better than what it is now. So that's just, but you have to we have to go to Connecticut, up to Massachusetts, out on the Pike. I mean, out on the Cape. You got to hit the Mass Pike, or head out west up into the Berkshires, or hit Cape Cod. So they're smallies are around, but to go really target some quality ones, I have to drive a couple hours to go get them. There is one body of water close to me that the state of Connecticut's actually working on. They're working on building up the smallie population back. It used to be a really good smallmouth fishery, and then that declined a ton. But that's one of the healthiest, if not the healthiest, bodies of water in Connecticut. So, Connecticut Department of Environmental Protection is they're doing a really good job of trying to bring that population back, adding smallmouth, adding some open water bait fish, alewives, and doing a really good job at it. So that's going to be a treat to when those smallmouth get to be real big. That's for sure. Then I can actually go target some, chasing around schools of bait and all that kind of stuff, which I can't really do unless I drive. So.
Mm-hmm. With you being a woodworking teacher, do you bring some of that bait making into the classroom? It's like, all right, kiddos, like this week we're on the lathe, we're turning some baits.
Yeah, so I have I had a few kids that we were turning plugs on the lathe. I had I only had a couple of students this year actually finish their lures, but I had a few guys like just playing on the lathe, turning with shapes and turning different shapes and stuff like that. But it's like I get going on stuff, bringing my own stuff in, eyes, and I brought in my lure turner for clear coats. I haven't brought the airbrush in yet. That's soon. That'll end up being next year. I have another compressor. I have a spare airbrush that I'll end up bringing in. Uh, we have we have a really big art program, so I get a lot of artsy kids, and I think that they would go nuts for the airbrush. Um, so it's like I would love to be like, hey, I got these that I have ready to paint. Just go nuts on these, please. That would be awesome. And then I'll clear coat them. But that is just different stuff like that. We have a ton of mini lathes. So Grizzly benchtop, third horsepower mini lathes, and they're perfect for making lures. And I'll get a lot of kids that are turning lures. I had a few kids in one of my classes this year, and they got heavy into bass fishing over over the winter, and they found out I tournament fish. They found out I made all these baits. They follow me on Instagram and stuff like that, and they're like, "Oh, Mr. Thayer, what do I do for a jig rod? And I want to turn this spook, and you got to teach me how to build this." And it's like, dude, we have to do our projects. Like, I have to actually grade you on stuff. If we have time, we can mess around with some plugs. But it's a blast doing the fishing lures with the kids and seeing them actually really taking to making something with their hands that they can then go and catch a fish on. It is something really cool. I had one of the students um that finished his lure. He uh he he lives right on a salt pond, and he grew up fishing, so saltwater fishing. And talking with me, he was like, all right, I want you to give me an overview on stuff just to start making lures. And he went out and Facebook Marketplace. He bought a lathe. He's a freshman in high school. Bought a lathe. He bought turning chisels. He was working on building a lure turner. Uh, and then he got a bunch of different spray paints. And he said, yeah, if I can sell any, then maybe I'll buy an airbrush, stuff like that. It was just super cool. He's like, I might end up asking for a airbrush setup for Christmas or my birthday or something. And I'm like, dude, that's so cool. Freshman in high school, he's got a lathe and he's got turning tools. He's got a sharpening setup, asking me questions about all this different stuff. It's just, it was awesome. But yeah, yeah, good. A lot of interest, which I really like to see. I gave away a good amount of lures to those kids just to be like, keep fishing, keep doing this. Try to make some things with your hands. You can, anybody can do this. You just got to put some time into it. Yeah, no, it's very cool. It's very cool to see.
Mhm. Well, and there's like catching a fish, that in of itself a lot of fun, but then you add like the layer onto it. It's like, all right, I caught a fish on a lure that I made,
Yep.
and it just takes it up a notch. Like, even if it's like, not the biggest fish ever, it's like, but this is something that I made with my hands,
Yep.
and now I caught a fish with it. It's just next level, dude.
The and like on a wood bait too. It's like this was a chunk of wood. This was a 2x4. This was a piece of firewood. This was something I got out of the scrap bin, and I caught a fish on a chunk of wood. It is just such a cool thing. Um, and like I put weight in it. I made it swim, and then I caught a fish on it. I fooled a living thing into thinking or pissing it off enough to eat it. But it's one in the it's just crazy. I have a good buddy of mine. He's in Connecticut, and he's good buddies with Edwin at Legal Dope. He's a product tester with Edwin. Joey Lanciotti, same thing. He's a product tester. Good friends with Joey. Fishes with Joey all the time. Um, but he's a big bait guy. He throws my baits and he's like, dude, I'm catching big fish on your baits and Edwin's and Joey's, and that's it. I'm not throwing anybody else's. And he's like, I get tired of 4-pounders now. He's like, 4-pounders are just kind of like, yeah, whatever, and he's like, I don't know how you can like take pictures of small fish and stuff like that. I'm like, dude, I have caught hundreds of fish on my spinner baits, and this thing started out as a hook and a piece of pre-bent wire, and some random pieces of silicone. Like, I just there's something about making your own baits and catching fish on them that is just so special to me. And he's like, well, I paint baits. So I'm like, yeah, I know you paint baits, but you're painting them. You're painting a pre-made thing. And I just can't explain how you're putting the work, the effort, seeing all the steps in the process to then see a functional piece catch a fish. It's like, that's why I get excited when I catch a fish on a bait that I make, um, whether it be small, whether it be big. It's just like, and he's like, oh, dude, I can't post any pictures of any small fish that I catch on your baits. And I'm like, dude, I do it. I don't care. Like, I would love that. Any kind of fish, any fish that eats one of my baits is special in my eyes. As nerdy as that sounds. But I made that piece of wood swim. I made that piece of wood pop. I made that piece of wood catch a living thing.
Yeah, exactly. One thing that I want to touch on here real quick with um with your high school students and them, you can make a lure turner, but what I use for my lure turning um is my rod turner that I
Yep.
build my fishing rods on, and it dries turns so the epoxy dries even.
Mm.
I just took a wood dowel and I sanded it so opposite sides are flat, and then I can just clip bills onto it,
Yep.
and that works pretty darn good, I tell you what.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Like my lure turn, I have some videos on Instagram of it, and it's so rudimentary. I end up spring clipping vice grips. You can see behind me there. I have all my vice grips on a lolly column, and uh, I use them to hold the bait when I'm painting it, when I'm airbrushing it, and then it goes on to the turner, and it spins around clamped with a vice grip on the actual turner. It's redneck, but it ends up working.
Yeah, and that was my thing. I was like, if it works, and it works pretty good. Like, it's
Hell yeah,
how
man! If boot fits, if it fits, it ships. Send it.
um so we'll kind of wind down here a little bit. Besides, like, there's a lot of commonality with us, with people that fish, just with fishing and lure making and all that. Um, Besides your woodworking and making lures, what else do you like to do in your free time?
Dude, I that it consumes me. That's for sure. Like winters, I in the winter I'll get into a certain mindset, and I'm in the shop or I'm teaching, like, and it's like I just work, and then during this time of the year, and the good months of the year, uh, I'm either in the shop or I'm fishing. It's like I got friends of mine that are like, oh yeah, what are you doing fishing? Oh, you have a tournament? No. Oh, okay. So you want, and it's like, yeah, I'll go to a cookout. I'll go to, I'll go to a party, whatever. You just got to, I just have to organize it around a fishing trip, essentially. Uh, and that I do a lot. I do like to shoot pool, so play billiards. I do like to bowl. I haven't bowled in a while. Um, I love baseball. Love to watch baseball. I love my Red Sox. Um, but I played ball in high school. I don't anymore. I'd actually love to go out and just play catch with somebody or go to a batting cage. But I've since retired from the game of baseball. I just watch it now and yell at the TV. Uh, but yeah, there's certain things. My uncle has a 157-acre farm that I like to help out on. We just had a heat wave of over 100 degrees and over, and you make hay when the sun shines. And I went through hay bales out in 102-degree weather for a couple days straight. That was real fun. Me being a big fat guy, but yeah, I cut firewood. I live, Rhode Island, but I live in a basically a farming community, blue collar community, essentially. So, it's not the Newport mansions or anything like that. So, but yeah, I enjoy doing, a whole lot of different things. I'm not a fan. I'm not opposed to trying new things at all. I I have a uh, not quite an antique tractor, but an old tractor with a front end loader. I love making a mess with that, and I like working on that. So just building things, moving dirt, just like a big kid in the sandbox.
Okay, so with you liking to shoot pool, have you made that step to like make your own pool cue?
So I haven't made a full pool cue yet. This winter I did get a bunch of hardware and stuff like that for making pool cues. Um I have my big lathe is a 36-inch. I have a 36-inch lathe that I can make. It's actually big enough to make pool cues on. It's just a few different certain things messing around with the joint connection, things like that. It's just something that I have to put in some time with. I could actually make with hand tools, with hand planes. I could make a single piece pool cue that would end up being really cool, but transporting it is always tough. You got a big long pool cue. I mean, it's not all that bad. Us fishing, throwing 7'6" frog rods in our in our vehicles, but uh, you know, walking into a pool hall with a single piece pool cue, you look like a fucking nerd. um, but yeah, no. So I have dabbled in it. I haven't made one. I haven't made a full one yet. I have a um I have a few of uh the actual not the cue body but the cue tips, the top part. I have a few of those made up that have come out really sweet. Just getting that joint connection is always, and getting everything nice and straight so it doesn't look like you're rolling a pool noodle on a table uh is the tricky part, is all.
Mm-hmm.
I'm
Yeah.
always I've always been that kind of person where it's like I like to do an activity and I've always enjoyed making something around it or working on something around it. Like I was big into bikes and BMX and in high school before I got my driver's license. It was like yeah, I'd ride my bike around and then I'd take it apart to put it back together. I'd want to work on my bike and I'd want to fix this, even though it was like not like it wasn't broken, but I wanted to put a new one on it just because I wanted to work on my bike. Um, stuff like that. I haven't I haven't turned a baseball bat yet. But that's definitely on the list. I want to turn a torpedo bat. Those the torpedo bats that the Yankees are using and everything like that. I'd love to turn one of those, especially. Um, but yeah, I've always been one of those people that it's like, okay, you got an activity, and then I got to try to make something that goes along with it.
Mhm. Oh man, you could go full out with that pool cue too. It's like, all right, now I have this real nice pool cue, and I follow this lady on TikTok. She does decorative thread wraps for rods and then pool
Yeah.
cues. So cool.
Oh
But
yeah.
you can full ass it and like do like a pool cue case that you walk in with. You know, your custom case. You ready to go?
Yup. That's it. Like, yeah, and then scratch 3 times. Like, but yeah, I would that is definitely something that I would that I really want to do. And when I finish with this 3 week summer intensive course that I'm doing right now for school, um that I'm taking, I want to end up messing around on the lathe a little bit more. My big lathe is sat idle since like February, or no, probably no, right around Christmas time, actually, December. December into January, I haven't touched it. So it's like it's sitting out in my shop in the back. Like, when are you gonna spin something on me? You got this big old, I got this big 36-inch long. I can outboard turn on the thing, but it's like, with the headstock on there now, I can turn like an 18-inch diameter bowl. Uh, it's just 18, and it's like this hot rod lathe that I don't need to. I like will never need to upgrade, and I've used it 10 times maybe. Like, it just kills me sitting out there, but you know. Yeah, so that's definitely something. The pool cue aspect is that's what I want to. That's one thing that I really want to make for sure.
Mhm. And then with you being a woodworker, um, it's kind of a weird question, but I thought it was kind of funny. What's a stinky wood that you that's like what's the stinkiest wood that you've worked with?
No, that's not a weird question. So um I can give you another sense too of a taste. So Spanish cedar is normally used to make humidors for cigars. Um, and cedar is very aromatic as well. But the Spanish cedar is very aromatic, and it smells really good. But when you work with it, and I make some baits out of it too. But when you work with it, the dust, it's like it has such a taste to it. It's so weird. It's like you walk around and it's like, yep, it's just the undescribable. It tastes almost like it smells, but not. It doesn't taste good. It's a good smell, not a good taste. It's weird. But yeah, that's definitely up there for one of the senses. And then another, for the stinkiest wood. One, if you're just cutting firewood and stuff, red oak or black oak, especially. My grandfather, my uncle, piss oak. Anybody that cuts firewood will know that term. But actual working, like lumber wise, is a Brazilian hardwood called Ipe, IPE. The stuff is hard as a rock. It's used on decks, exterior decks a lot, and it's actually so dense it sinks. So you learn in school wood floats, but Ipe doesn't. You chuck it in the water and it sinks like a stone. Uh, but the dust that comes off of this, it's brown. It's super super dark, and when you cut it, it's green. It's like the chartreuse green, and yeah, it's totally random. Uh, and it just this it doesn't have a smell that I can describe, but it is so pungent. Like, some guys, their eyes will start to water. Um, I get really stuffed up because there's a lot of those oils and everything in it. Um, but that's some of the nastiest stuff that you can use, and it's crazy because it's a natural thing. It grows in Brazil, grows in South America. It's not a chunk of AZAC or composite material that you buy off the shelf. It's a piece of tree, but I mean, there's so much oil content and there's actual silica dust in it. So, basically like sand that grows in it, abrasive. Um, you can put that on the lathe, and you can you can turn it, and it turns beautifully because it's so dense. You have to sharpen your tools a lot. One, it's hard, and then that silica content that you're cutting through. Um, but when you turn it and then you sand it, you can burnish it with like a paper bag, brown paper bag. You can use the shavings that come off the lathe. You can actually put them on there with your hand. But that heat and the friction that it makes, it it'll heat up the oil almost, and it makes such a sheen just off the lathe, and the friction of that burnishing process, it's incredible. It's just like there's no abrasives needed. There's no wax. There's no oil. There's no poly or anything. It's just it's crazy cool stuff. But yeah, Ipe, to make a long, make a long story a little bit longer. Ipe is one of the stinkiest materials for sure.
And then, kind of last question here. When you're out on the boat,
Yeah.
what are you bringing for snacks? What's the situation? What snack, drink? What you bringing with
Yep.
you?
So I'm a big coming from southern New England. I'm a big iced coffee guy. So I love
Oh
me
man,
some iced
some
coffee.
Dunkin'.
I'm not. I do like Dunkin' Donuts, but I'm not the biggest Dunkin' fan. Um, we had this coffee shop. It was grow. I There was one when I was growing up. It was all over the state of Rhode Island. It was called Bess Eaton, Besseaton. Um, Bess Eaton, and then it went away for a while, and then it came back. Um, and I loved that coffee. That was my favorite. And then the last one, no, actually, there's still one in Westerly. But the second to last one just closed right up the road from where I teach. But there's a new place in there. They make their own donuts, and they have so it's like New England's best coffee or whatever, but they do whatever to it. That's some really really good coffee as well. And then I make my own coffee. The old Folgers out of the coffee pot the day before. Let it cool down, and then put it in the pitcher, and put it in the fridge. But I've usually always got an iced coffee with me. Um, and for boat snacks, a lot of decent amount of granola bars. Those are always on the boat. I do like a rice cake with peanut butter. One of my buddies, he makes fun of me. He's like, "Dude, I can't believe you even eat those things. They're like chewing on a chunk of styrofoam." I'm like, "I don't know." I'm like, "My mom eats them plain. It's really bad." But I like my rice cakes and peanut butter. Anything easy that I can, because I want to go fish. And I'm so bad about sitting down and eating something when I'm out on the boat, especially when I'm in a tournament. Um, and that's a lot of. And I'm like, I'll get off the water and I'll be like, all right, I'm starving. I need to go eat something. And then I'll eat my lunch at 3 o'clock in the afternoon that I had on the boat with me the whole time. Um, but yeah, the boat, that's what ends up being in the boat. Doritos, Cool Ranch Doritos, those are a big hit as well.
I
So,
don't know why your buddy's hating on you, dude. Like rice cakes and peanut butter is like a pretty solid snack.
dude, it's I mean, like, I don't know, it's easy. There's two ingredients: there's rice cakes and there's peanut butter, and you put it in a bag. Like, it's just how it's like. That's a boat snack, if you ask me. I mean, that's a pretty good snack. Yeah, man, that's a staple in the old tracker. That's for sure.
Mhm. I oh, so on my YouTube channel, I doing this thing where I'm trying out like different snacks that people are suggesting, different boat snacks, or beating the bank, different snacks like that. And I tried some Vienna sausages for the first time, and what an experience for me! I tell you what.
I got a couple of buddies that they the Jigs and Bigs guys, so their podcast, they're out of Massachusetts. They'll talk about the old Vienna sausage, and and then they're big in. And one guy, Bobby, the main host, he's big into the jerky. He's always got beef jerky on the boat. I'm like, dude, I don't know how you afford beef jerky. I mean, beef jerky prices are crazy. Those are for the pauper people, the poor people, and dried meat. But I do like beef jerky, but I can't say that I've ever had beef jerky on the boat.
Oh yeah, like I don't know, I can't justify spending like $20 a bag for a couple of pieces.
Yeah, right. That's the truth. That's the absolute truth. Yeah, I know the guys that talk about the Vienna sausage and a lot of guys will talk, do that kind of stuff. I don't know. That's not my game, that's for sure.
Oh, I very quickly found out that it was not for me. It wasn't terrible. It wasn't. I've had like weirder stuff, but it's not the boat snack for me.
Yep. Yeah, no, me either. I'll stick to some chips, granola bars, my rice cakes. No Vienna sausages for me, that's for sure. I do enjoy a nice, going out in the evening and having a nice pizza out on the boat. That's always a good time, for sure.
Heck yeah, man. All right, well, Matt, this was fun. We chatted a lot about a lot of different things, and I enjoyed this.
Awesome, yeah, me too. I had fun. Anytime you want me back on, I'm more than willing to talk.
All right, perfect. Well, thanks again, man.
Awesome, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Not a problem.